Okay, so you should have a lower chassis that looks something like this. Cable going along the side, from the front, the narrower side, to the back, and then a cable plugged into the second side. That's the input to the LED lighting. Your power distribution board in place. This little cable going to extend the battery connection. We do have some plans to put a switch connected in line here up front, and that's just going to be a 3D printed, something you could maybe do yourself as well. And all the plastic side panels are on just until this point, without the angles on it yet. Okay, so before we do much more assembly, let me explain what looks complicated here in terms of the wiring. Again, this is the front. The narrower side is the front, wider side is the back. You're going to want to put the NavQ Plus in this orientation. On the front, there's front mounting holes. You can also use double-sided sticky tape to get it in the right position, but the holes do happen to line up with these holes in the cases. This ribbon cable for the camera that comes out the side of the NavQ Plus goes to the front, and you want to assemble it in the plastic camera holder and put this sort of GoPro mount together on this front piece of plastic. Along the front here are CAN cables. Technically, you don't need them in the system, but they are there, and it is good to get them in place at this point in time. So plug them in, tuck them in around the side, and you can see how you can just use a zip tie around this loop to hold all the cables in place, and then they can go underneath the board, underneath the metal, and maybe just pop them up here for now, and you don't need to connect them. They could connect here. They can also connect to other UCAN type devices. The other important connections on the NavQ Plus is this one in particular. This is 5-pin with 2 of them being power and 2 of them being ground. So that goes onto this connector right here, and you should double check any of these things that you're not 100% clear on. Check them with the Git book, which describes every single one of these connectors. All right, so you'll see there's like an SD card on the side. This is the antenna. We're going to just, when we're ready, we're going to tuck that down the side of the plastic on the buggy. And then on this side, the important one is this cable here is a 2-wire T1, little 2 wires twisted. And again, you can use the your zip ties just to hold it in place. And that is going to go all the way along the back and up and into the S32K344 board. Now, I think that's all the connections on the NavQ at the moment. This cable here I've plugged in. It's part of the console debugger, so that there's going to be 2 ones that use this. This one closest is the console, and the outer one will be used for the LiDAR connection. Okay. The K3 needs to be mounted, rotated, so that the CAN adapt board that sits on top of the S32K344, or this is also MR CAN hub K344, that arrow should be facing forward. That's again a power cable. This is an extra long power cable. It's got to be able to stretch actually underneath to where the power distribution board is. That goes there. That's your T1 Ethernet into the middle connector right there. I think that's it. And then the last one are these PWM signals on this header. Okay, there's 3 cables. One of them is a female style, and The actual order here is could change depending on the software. So for our initial setup, we're running Cognipilot software and Zephyr defines which pins are the PWM. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3. So the third one right now, and mine is configured to be the servo. That's going to connect to the servo cable that's coming up from the bottom. And then the next two, one is, there's sort of, this motor controller has a enable line, and it has a throttle direction line where the middle 1500 microsecond pulse is not moving, and below that is reverse, and above it is forward. So we'll show you about that in the software later, but just keep in mind that you should keep track of which is which. I put a little piece of green tape on it. And however, you know, if you have some weird throttle behavior, you can always adjust that by flipping the connections. All right, so we do recommend you zip tie everything so that it's neat and tidy. And finally, you want to at least put the mount on in the back for the GPS. So the GPS is not being used for, the GPS will not be used for actual GPS at the moment, but it happens to have a compass and an arming button. So that's, there's a little switch here for arming. Okay. So at least mount this part, and there's a screw that goes through it that holds it in place. Okay, now a little bit tricky things you have to do. We've got this part assembled now, and you need to connect up the PWM cables and the power cable. So you want to gently get it into position and plug the two PWM cables in. There's a side that says red is plus, black is minus, and white is a signal. So you put that on this little header that also says S plus and minus. So we're going to plug those in. If they are in the wrong, well, don't plug them in the wrong way around in terms of plus and signal, but if they were one in the wrong, the innermost and the outermost, you can always swap them once you figure that it's wrong. Here's the cable for the servo, and that's going to plug into here, and you can see there's like a little alignment notch that's going to hold together. So there's a little notch there, and you line up that notch. You can also double check again. Black or brown is usually the ground side, and black here, so a brown on this one should go to the black there. This is the yellow is going to the white there. Finally, we've got, that's a power cable. This is a power cable coming from the CAN Hub K3, K344. I don't know if you can see it, but there's these two power cables right there, and that just plugs in. It doesn't matter, they're both the same, they're just providing power. And I'll put that one in next to it. Okay. Okay, so then you kind of just gently get everything into place. I'll note that this little antenna we kind of tuck in behind, in front of the metal, but behind the plastic is the best. And yeah, so you can just see it in there where it's secure. Be gentle and wiggle everything into place. Make sure the cables aren't getting snagged, and something like that is good. Okay, before tightening it down, make sure stuff is loose. You haven't pinched anything. Okay. And then again, your screws may or may not be the same as this, but these are socket head cap screws, and you can gently tighten them down. One thing I haven't noted yet is this purple standoff. You may find, maybe one is provided, or an extra one might be provided, or you might need to use plastic standoffs that are in the kit. The purpose of this right now is that there's an arch that goes over the top for the GPS, for the LiDAR, and it's a little bit not stiff enough. We're looking at solutions to that. You could also 3D print something that goes in here to provide back pressure on the backside. But for now, this post seems to work out okay, so we post with a screw on top, and that holds it up with enough pressure. Add all 8 screws if you can. You should put all of them in. Don't over tighten any of them, because it's always better to let things, just snug them up gently so there's a bit of leeway when you're assembling, in case there's something loose. Sorry, in case there's something jammed. All right, there's nothing much more complicated here. These little plastic front and rear parts are held on with a couple of screws. Here's a good example. So that needs a little bit of wiggling to get into position. There we go. 1, 2, 3, okay, and I'll snug them up a little bit more. Okay. These are your CAN cables. They're not being used yet. This is a console, a serial port console that you might want to use when the NavQ boots up. That's the power. There's the CAN cables on the front. This is your flex cable for the camera. So this camera has a little notch there. The ribbon cable goes through, and you gently put that on the front. And then there's little fine black screws with a taper on them. They're, I think, M2.5. All the other screws are M3. M3 by 5 millimeters is the most commonly used size. Again, don't over tighten this either. This is just threaded right into the plastic, so if you over tighten stuff, it can strip it. Here's the rear part. Again, it goes on the same way. There are little cutouts in the back here for things like telemetry radios or Bluetooth radios that we have planned. There's it's called a UART type telemetry radio that works with the system as well. Okay, probably before putting this back part on, if you are using the GPS, which you probably should be, that would get, there's one screw that holds a pin in here. Just put that in first and let it sit down, and then that plugs into this GPS connector here. Okay. Again, the reason you want the GPS is for a compass, a magnetometer, and the arming switches. After this is together and things are out of the way, we have the LiDAR that mounts on this bracket, and you can see there's a little bit of flex. We're working to improve that. The power cable, the cable for the LiDAR plugs in here into the NavQ Plus. And then this bracket goes across the top with, again, these M3 by 5 screws. And my holes are a little bit stripped at this point. You could probably, if you do find some stripped plastic holes, you could probably use a little bit of glue, even white glue or something that would, or epoxy glue that would form some threads and make them hold on. Anyway, it's fine. You may or may not be able to see there's that post here is just providing a little bit of additional rigidity to that so it doesn't vibrate. And then finally, the top cover goes on place over top. If you want to, you can of course operate it like this when you need access, but finally top cover goes on, and we have these types of thumb screws to hold that in place. The thumb screws just make it easy to remove this top and bottom. I think the ones in the pre-production kit are in fact blue. Again, don't over tighten them. And then there are side plates that cover this lower section. They go on like so. I'm not sure where that's coming from. That's a motor. So you just put in thumb screws to hold that in place as well. Okay, I know this was a quick assembly. There may be more tricky parts. Please let us know. Email us directly for anything that's not clear. And hope you enjoy the pre-production version of the kit, and we'll continue to improve the documentation over time. Thanks.